My abusive stepdad deserved losing everything he loved. Karma is sweet, especially when it happens to the man who abused me and my family as often as he could. For a bit of context, my family lost my father because of a hit and run. It was devastating and I was still young at the time, but without him around, the house felt more empty and quiet. Luckily, through a large insurance claim, my mom received enough money to care for us without any trouble. After years of loneliness, my sister and I convinced my mom to join a dating website. The man that caught her interest was a middle school teacher who loved sports and often volunteered for school sports clubs. On the outside, he probably seemed charming to my mom, but when we first met him, I knew, even as a teen boy, that he was an absolute a-hole. The red flags were obvious, but my mom was swept away by the flow, and within a few months of dating, that man moved in with us, filling up the space my amazing dad once held. Once he settled in, he really took control of the house. In the garage, he threw away my skateboards, self-built half-pipe, ramps, BMX bike, ice hockey gear, all of which cost me years of allowance. He simply wanted the space now that it was his garage. When he saw me yelling and crying, he put all his strength into slapping me, saying, "A real man doesn't cry." In my own bedroom, he burned my Pokemon cards and sold my comic book collection for beer money. About 2 months afterwards, he flung his fist into my stomach during dinner when I left the table without excusing myself. From then on, he didn't even try to find a reason or excuse to beat me up. I had to wear long-sleeve shirts and pants to cover up the bruises and cuts. He always made sure to hit me in spots that could be hidden. Each time he pounded his fist against my body, he made sure to yell out how unmanly I was in his eyes, how gay I am, how he would never want a son like me, how my mother is ashamed of me, everything. I wasn't sure if she was really ashamed, but my mom was definitely a bystander to everything. At some point, I started to believe him. I mean, my own mother stopped giving me lunch money all because that man ordered her to. So I starved. And I starved till I stole money from his change jar to buy a sandwich. My sister, who had been abused in other ways, saw me stealing and snitched out of fear. So I tried running away before the beatdown could happen. Obviously, the cops found me, and instead of returning home, they sent me to juvie under my stepdad's recommendation that I was a flight risk with a history of stealing. The few years in juvenile detention made me both hateful and suicidal. My mom visited a few times secretly, updating me and asking about me. I couldn't for the life of me understand why she was with him all this time. I finally lost my temper during a visit and real talked to her, saying that once I'm out, she would never see me again as long as she's with the fucker. That I was disappointed that my own mother's lack of action led me to being locked up and ruined. She stopped visiting after that. So I spent the rest of my free time working out or basically exercising away the pain and anger. On the day I got out of juvie, I was surprised that my mom and sister had picked me up. Apparently after the talk I gave, my mom finally took action. In exchange for leaving us alone, she would buy him another property. She gave him a certain amount of time before I got out of detention to take his belongings. He didn't exactly take it well, but my mom added that if he were to continue, she would be the one to file a police report on him instead. They signed the agreement, and he really did leave our home. It was back to just the three of us, but I did notice that several of that man's belongings remained in the house. He was past the deadline to remove his personal effects, and they were now legally mine to dispose of as I saw fit. I sold his baseball card collection, autographed, sports memorabilia, woodworking equipment, his mother's engagement ring, his coin collection, everything. With that money, I could buy back all the things I lost before, so I made a plan to visit a nearby Walmart, and that's where I saw him. I felt my blood boil at the sight of his punchable face, but I held my cool. He approached me first asking what I was doing in a store shopping around when I had no money and no job. The smug look on his face quickly disappeared when I told him about selling a few random junk in the house like a collector's baseball set and more. He lunged at me, but all the juvie exercise made me strong enough to take his hit. I called out for help, and within seconds, officers at the store arrested him and charged him with assault, destruction of property, and disorderly conduct. A few of the shoppers on the scene had filmed the interaction and arrest, making him viral enough for his workplace to have seen and forced to take immediate action. Watching the man who tormented me for years get handcuffed and whisked away in a patrol car honestly felt amazing. It was his first arrest and he got out on bail, but watching him struggle to find a job, especially after being known as the teacher who assaults people at Walmart, was more fun than I could have ever imagined. He eventually landed a job at a local diner as a janitor. It's always fun to stop by and watch him clean and get bossed around by the other customers. Sometimes while he's there, I like to loudly talk about a few of the things I sold to some of the waiters. It was great seeing the despair look in his eyes. I never thought I'd say this, but I hope he never moves away.